This is a TDS meter. TDS stands for Total Dissolved Solids. So if you do a search for TDS, you'll find some surprising things here. Look at this, Urban Dictionary, Trump derangement syndrome. Get the hell out of here. God, I swear, you social justice warriors just freaking ruin everything. Total dissolved solids. Dissolved solids refer to any mineral, salt, metals, cations, or anions dissolved in water. Total dissolved solids comprise inorganic salts, principally calcium, magnesium, potassium, sodium, bicarbonates, chlorides, and sulfates, and some small amounts of organic matter that are dissolved in water. How much should the TDS of drinking water? In terms of total dissolved solids, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, the same people that said it was totally fine to breathe the air at ground zero on 9/11, remember those guys? They advise against consuming water containing more than 500 milligrams per liter, otherwise known as 500 parts per million. Wow. Although many health specialists believe that the ideal drinking water should be under 50 parts per million or lower. Wow, that's quite a fucking difference there. That's an order of magnitude. Cations, positively charged ion, one that would be attracted to the cathode in electrolysis. Anion, a negatively charged ion, one that would be attracted to the anode in electrolysis. So now we know what cations and anions are. I find it astounding that the EPA recommends a safe drinking water containing 500 parts per million of total dissolved solids. That is astounding. So back to my little meter here. You get one of these and it just has a cathode and an anode, literally two electrodes. And all it really does is it tells you the amount parts per million of what's in your water. And one of those comes with the Zero Water system. And no, I'm not being paid by anybody. I just want to show you guys the difference. That's the filtration system that I use. So I'm going to get a fresh coffee cup. Okay, clean. I'm just going to put a little bit of tap water in there. And then I'm going to get a fresh cup right there, nothing in it. Okay, put that there. Now, this, oops, let me turn it on. Okay, it's on. 0 ppm, parts per million. And there's tap water. 50, 49. Okay. Now, this is not a brand new filter. I've actually used this quite a bit. We've got dogs and cats, and I drink a lot of coffee, and my wife drinks a lot of tea, and we cook with it. This is not a brand new filter. These things are expensive, but they do last a long time. And this one here is getting close to being ready to be changed out. But, so, okay, it says 0. We'll just dry it off a little bit. 0. This is, what's it say there? What's it say? 2 parts, 1. It's bouncing between 2 and 1 part per million. So if I put a fresh filter in here, it would say 0. I'll change that filter when it gets to be about 5 plus. Somewhere between 5 and 10 is about time to change that filter. Because after all, these things are expensive. They're $10 to $15 per filter. But like I said, they do last a long time. So I've got a small pond over there, a little koi pond, and here's a little bit of a bog area, a little bit of a stream for the birds to bathe in. here's my TDS meter. We'll turn it on. And it says, come on, focus. Focus, please. 0. It's saying 0. And now I'm going to test this. 27. Now, keep in mind that this is full of sand and gravel and rocks, and so the rocks and the sand, they're probably leaching some minerals from the rocks. And also keep in mind that when this thing gets low, we use the garden hose to fill it up. In other words, it's tap water. So, real quick, let me just go over here and show you one of my outside dog bowls for drinking. And yes, I haven't cleaned it in a while, but we've had a lot of rain in Georgia. Okay, so a little bit dirty in there, but I want to just show you this. Mostly, almost entirely, everything that's in here is pretty much rainwater. So let's check this out. 18, 17. So it's actually less than the pond, and that includes some dirt and schmutz or whatever's in there. But there you go. That's primarily basically dirty rainwater. So there you go. Back inside, my meter is reading 0. I'm going to take a clean, empty coffee cup. Just put a little bit of tap water in there. See what that says. .48. Now I'm going to take my used, that's empty, my used filter from my Zero Water system one more time. And it's going to go from 48, pull it out, shake it off, 0, and it gives me a reading of 1 part per million, and that's a used filter. Now, like I said, I feed my dogs and my cats on this water. My wife and I have rescued and worked with rescue groups, dogs and cats, for many years. And over the years, every single male cat that we have had, every one of them, eventually develops a thyroid problem. And the last cat we had that we just put down last year, he actually developed a thyroid lump. He developed a cancer. His thyroid on his neck just swelled up so much. And so that was, he was old enough. It was just too much to put him through the surgery or the chemo or whatever. So that was the end of him, and it was very sad. And every cat we've had to put on thyroid medication. And what I've heard, I haven't confirmed this, but the fluoride in our drinking water is the result or the source of thyroid problems. So a quick Google search on thyroid and fluoride shows a consistent body of animal and human research shows that fluoride exposure worsens the impact of iodine deficiency. Iodine is the basic building block of the T3 and T4 hormones, and thus an adequate iodine intake is essential for the proper function of the thyroid gland. So if you have dogs and cats, or like my mom, if you have birds, you better stop feeding them tap water. Otherwise, you're going to pay some hefty vet bills and you're going to see the early demise of your animals. So I just watched this video from Amplex. They're a pretty good channel. Title, "This Will Truly Terrify and Leave You Speechless." This video is all about what's in your water. Now, they compile a whole bunch of articles and interviews regarding experts and articles about what has been discovered in drinking water. And I'm going to include some of that in the video in a moment. But one thing that struck me was somewhere in the comment section, and I'll scroll down in just a second. Now, I do realize it's anecdotal, there's no proof, it's just a comment, but check this out. I was a nurse, and I tested slightly positive for meth. I was in no contact with anybody doing those drugs, and the only reason I didn't lose my job is because my boss told me I'm sorry that she typed it badly, I start having to drink bottled water from Fiji or someplace like that because our tap water is tainted with all sorts of drugs, not just pharmaceuticals, by the way, illegal drugs. So she got to keep her job. So this video by Amplex highlights not only the various toxicity of the water, but it also, if you didn't know, everybody who's on pharmaceutical drugs, when they go to the bathroom, that water goes back to the source, it goes back to the system, it gets filtered, which is a poor filter system, and that water makes its way back to you. So all the pharmaceuticals that everybody is on is actually in your water. By the way, I'm also going to include some footage, or possibly I'll just leave the link to another video showing the importance of using distilled water. So regarding the total dissolved solids, keep in mind chlorides and sulfates are some pretty toxic things here. I don't know about you, but if you've ever taken your garden hose and just spray the water in the air, you can actually smell the chlorine evaporating out of the water. You can smell it. And if you have a sensitive nose, you might be able to smell it when you're in the shower as well. I'm going to show a couple of examples from the Amplex video and this other video showing how bad your water is. But just in case, many of you out there may have house plants, and have you ever noticed that white crusty shit that forms on the top of the soil of your plants, of your house plants, when you use tap water to water your plants? That white crust is the total dissolved solids. Now these solids contain all kind of toxic minerals, lead and copper and cadmium from the pipes. The lead comes from the solder joints of the copper pipes. These are toxic minerals that you do not want to be intaking. You don't want to be feeding it to your animals, and you may not want to feed it to your plants. This white crusty shit forms because of the evaporative process. The top of the soil has exposure to the air, so it's a wicking process like the wick of a candle. It sucks the moisture up from deep in the soil, and everything travels to the top where it evaporates into the air, and that's where you get this white crust on the top of your soil. That's an indication that your water is heavily laden with total dissolved solids, and those things are toxic. And by the way, you can actually prove this to yourself by getting a clean glass container, something that can take some heat that you can put on the stove. Put some tap water in a clean glass like a Corningware. Put some water in it, put it on the stove, turn it on low, let it just evaporate and see what's left in the glass container, and you'll see exactly what's in your tap water. No kidding.
I'm starting this video that's going to talk about distilling water with my water distiller. Here are the components. I have cleaned the distiller. You can see the condition that it's in. Nice and shiny and clean. There is a little bit of discoloration at the bottom. Something caused this stainless steel to be corroded a little bit. I'm not sure what that is. But after a couple of uses, it's like something in the water ate it away. So that's scary. Stainless steel. Notice how clean it is. And then after several batches of water that I distill, I'm going to let the gunk keep building up and show you what's left in there. I'm going to count the number of times I used the distiller. So this is number 1. I've cleaned it, and this is the first batch that's going in. As you can see, all of the pure distilled water is now in the glass carafe. Here is what is left in the container after 1 usage. It smells bad. What we see here in the bottom is completely foreign material that's been removed from pure H2O, aka water. All right, it's been 1 month since I've cleaned the water distiller. I just made my 15th batch. Let's see what's inside. Ugh, look at that junk. A crusted, cakey, stinky residue. It's wet right now. I'm gonna also film it when it's dry. Look at this stuff. This is the residue that's at the bottom. It's flaky, powdery, weird stuff. When I try to get this gunk up, it's really weird and it stinks. I'll try to grab a good bit of it. This is what was in my water supply. And I mean, it's pretty thick in here and in here. I would have consumed this within a month, and I'm sorry, but I don't want to consume that. Even if some of it is calcium and other nutrients that could be good for me, I don't want to consume this. This is not H2O. H2O, water, in its purest form, turns into a gas when it reaches a certain temperature. Okay, whatever doesn't evaporate is not water. What's in my hand right here is not water. And I want to be consuming pure water. I can get whatever nutrients, vitamins, and minerals that I need through my food sources. And I want to be consuming pure water. I can get whatever nutrients, vitamins, and minerals that I need through my food sources. And that's where I prefer to get them, because a lot of people around here actually buy water because it's known that this local source has too much calcium, which leads to kidney stones. And also, too much calcium, if you don't need it, can prohibit iron absorption, and I'm extremely anemic, and I just don't need calcium at this stage in my life. And I hate to say it, but probably fluoride. It's kind of starting to even burn my fingers. Look at this. Look at this weird formation on the side here that formed. It's like these scales formed on the side of the interior of the water distiller. Let me mess with that and see what happens. Look at this stuff. This was in my water supply. What is this? Look at these scaly things. This was in my water. What is this? Look at that. Oh, the camera's really zooming in good. Let's see what else I can see in this pot of disaster. Now you can see a better view of what's at the bottom Again, this is 15 times of running a full load of water through the distiller. This is the buildup. This is another way that I'm showing you what was in my water. I took out the stuff from the bottom of the distiller and I put it in this plastic dish. And as you can see, this is the residue that was left behind from 1 month of distilling water. I distilled the water every other day, about a gallon every other day, and this is what would have gone in my body within that month if I had not removed it from my water. That right there is what was in my water supply. I would have consumed that, and I have no idea what that is. But either way, it did not go in my body. Instead, it's here in this dish, and I am showing you what it was.
Welcome you out to our store tonight. Tonight you're going to see something about your health, your wealth, and your future that is the most important thing to you, to your health, if there ever was, and it's the water you drink. Because you are 71% water, there's nothing more important to you than the water you drink in your life. Water is so important to our body that every organ in our body runs on water. We're lubricated with water, we're heated with water, we're cooled with water. When we get something in our eye, water comes there to wash it out. Water is so important. Water carries nutrients into our body. There's nothing more important to our health, our wealth, and our future than the water we drink. We're going to prove that this water is absolutely filthy and unable to do the job that water was intended to do. Kept in the boiling chamber. When we clean that out, we sometimes are totally amazed with the amount of filth that's in that boiling chamber. Like in Salt Lake City, that's what's in 50 gallons of Salt Lake City water after we clean the boiling chamber out. And people wonder why they're getting sick, why they have diseases. This is Ogden, Utah right here. That's 50 gallons of Ogden City water. Isn't that weird? How much filth is in tap water. You never would believe it unless you see it for yourself. Morgan, up where you work, this is about 80 gallons of Morgan City water. Does that look like one of the chemicals they add at the water treatment plant? It does, doesn't it? It's copper sulfate. Now the reason that they put copper sulfate in the water up there is because they have algae growing in the pipelines, and copper sulfate is an algicide. Now, algae won't hurt us, will it? We can eat algae, but when it starts to die and rot in water, it smells. You've smelled the Great Salt Lake. When the algae starts to grow and rot, it's got quite an odor to it. Well, when it has that gas inside these pipelines, and they inject chlorine into it, it creates trihalomethane gas. Okay? And that's very carcinogenic. That's where we come up with prostate cancer, bladder cancer, colon cancer. This is, some lady told me the other day she only drinks spring water from North Ogden Spring. That's 30 gallons at the North Ogden Spring, you know, and that's what's in spring water. Whenever you're drinking right out of the dirt, right out of the ground, you're drinking dirt. You're drinking filth. You're drinking everywhere you've walked. Okay? You're drinking everything that's on the bottom of your shoe. It doesn't matter where that water's from. The filth is there. These inorganic minerals are what we're drinking. This is right out of a distiller. Does that look like it'd be nice for our inside of our body? Dr. Charles Mayo from the Mayo Clinic, he's got a clinic in Arizona, one in Minnesota. His quote here is, "Water hardness, or inorganic minerals in solution, is the underlying cause of many, if not all, diseases resulting from poisons in the intestinal tract. These hard minerals pass from the intestinal walls and get into the lymphatic system, which deliver all of its products to the blood, which in turn is distributed to all parts of the body. This is the cause of much human disease. Dr. Charles Mayo of the Mayo Clinic. In Dr. Bannock's book, The Choice is Clear, he says if you're concerned about arthritis, hardening of the arteries, kidney stones, gallstones, cataracts, glaucoma, loss of hearing, diabetes, obesity, and emphysema, do not drink the inorganic minerals found in water. He's just talking about the inorganic minerals. We've talked about 80,000 different chemicals in our water. We've talked about the insects, the bacteria, the virus, the parasites, the dead animals in our water. When I put a distiller in my home, the very first week, this is what we took out of our distiller. That's what 6 people would have drank the first week. And when I got shown this to people and shown it to my wife and kids, I says, look, there's actually an animal hair in there. See that animal hair right there? There's 6 animal hairs in this bottle of water. I called the water guy up and I says, how come there's hair in our water this week? And he says, well, I thought we took that all out. I says, well, what was it? He says, we couldn't tell. It's too badly decomposed. Animal hair right there? There's 6 animal hairs in this bottle of water. I called the water guy up and I says, how come there's hair in our water this week? And he says, well, I thought we took that all out. I says, well, what was it? He says, we couldn't tell. It's too badly decomposed. I says, well, why didn't you tell everybody was drinking a dead animal this week? And he says, oh, don't worry, we put more chlorine in your water. So, you know, chlorine's 400,000 times more poisonous than DDT. Chlorine's 400,000 times more poisonous than DDT.
When I was doing research a number of years ago for my book, Killer Fish, I was stunned when they looked at the 250 most pristine waters in the world, notably in the North and South Pole, people not living, any marginal amounts of people living there. And every bit of the water had pharmaceutical drugs in it.
Do you know what's in your drinking water? A shocking Associated Press investigation found various pharmaceuticals in the drinking supplies of at least 41 million Americans. Tainted water was found from New Jersey to California.
The question that right now is on everyone's mind is how in the world did drugs get into our drinking water?
New worries tonight about the safety of America's water supply. In the first nationwide investigation of its kind, the Associated Press found that at least 41 million of us are drinking water that contains traces of prescription drugs. And now many are wondering, is our water safe?
Really, whether you need it or not, it's a virtual medicine cabinet in your tap water if you live in many, many areas across the country. There's a scary new report out today. The Associated Press did a big amount of research on this, and the findings show that there were traces of prescription drugs in the water supply used by 41 million Americans in some of the biggest cities in the U.S. The list includes over-the-counter pain medication, mood stabilizers, even hormones.
And the United Nations estimates close to 1.5 billion people around the world do not have access to clean drinking water. What about here in the United States? Anti-epileptics were found in drinking water of Southern California. A sex hormone was found in San Francisco's water. 3 medications and an antibiotic were found in the water supply of Tucson, Arizona. And a mood stabilizer was found in the water of New Jersey.